Logic's QRS Reverb is a hidden gem with a super lush sound. Today, I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can utilize this in your mixes. The QRS plugin models 2 vintage rack reverbs, the Quantec Room Simulator released in 1982, and the Quantec YardStick released in 1998. Both of these are super great sounding reverbs, and they're known for their immersive, super realistic room sound. Starting with the drums, I've gotten my kit loaded up here, and I've made a bus send for my drum reverb here, and all of them are just sending at unity at 0 decibels, and I've loaded the Quantec Room Simulator directly on that bus. So go ahead and open it up here. You'll see up at the top you have 2 main options, and this toggles between the 2 different models, the QRS model and the YardStick model. The QRS model is the original, and it's got a much more stripped back feature set, and then the Quantec YardStick is a little more advanced and a little more tweaky and has a lot more options. So depending on what you're looking for, you can choose one there. For the drums though, I'm using the classic QRS model, and I'll briefly show you what it sounds like and how I got that sound. From left to right, you have this large reverb time control. This is going to do the bulk of the work because it'll set how long the reverb time is for the reverb. So just turn this up and you'll get a longer tail on the reverb. If you turn it down, you get a shorter tail. All the way up to 10 seconds. Right here you have a section called freeze, and this will allow you to take a snippet of your reverb tail and sustain it infinitely. So this is really good for creating pads or ambient soundscapes. You just click freeze and go. And then if you want to add more tails into that calculated reverb, you can just press and hold the add button, or if you want to take it all away, you hit clear. I'll show you on drums, although it's not the best application for this. And that's all there is to that. Next is the enhance button, and this just kind of overrides your reverb time, and it's its own little special algorithm. So just turn it on and off and see if you like it while you're messing with other controls and go from there. Your main tweaking area is in this section. The reverb time multiplier basically will multiply the reverb time on a certain frequency spectrum. So if you want the highs to ring out longer than the lows, you're going to pull this little guy up right here. So now you can hear the splash on the highs lasts a lot longer than the lows. If you want to shorten it, so that's a really interesting way you can shape the sound of your reverb. Generally, I like to use this as a high and low roll off, so I'll just turn down the highs and the lows just a little bit, and that'll keep it from sounding too fake or getting out of hand. Next is the room size, and this is literally the size of the room that's being simulated. So you can go all the way down to 1 meter, 10 meters, 10 meters to the second power, so 100 meters. Keep getting larger and larger to like stadium size. I'm personally liking this to the 3rd power, so I'm going to stick with that. So first reflection delay and first reflection level. If you imagine you're hitting a snare drum and it bounces off of a wall and comes back, that is your first reflection, that initial flutter echo that happens. So this will let you simulate that. You can say how long you want it to be from the initial source. So, so something like 30 milliseconds later, and then you can set the level here. I'll show you what it sounds like because it's kind of confusing to talk about. So here is no first reflection. And here's some at 15 milliseconds. So you hear that little slap? So that could be good if you want a little bit of that like vintage slap style echo in there. That's a great way to get it. And then the reverb delay is like your typical pre-delay on a reverb where it'll set from when the source is hit, how long before it enters the reverb, basically. I don't like anything too crazy there, but I do like it back a little bit. Over on the second tab, you have some more in-depth controls that are also a little harder to hear, so don't spend as much time here. On the original device, the style analog digital converters they had caused a little bit of drive and grit. So that's what this simulates right here. You can turn it off by clicking here, and then you can put in the amount of drive with the little slider. So here's none. I'll turn it up so we can hear it. Here's a lot. Kind of breaking up a little bit. Very subtle. And then you can choose your first reflection source, whether you want it right, left, or left, right. I just leave that alone. It gets really tweaky really fast. And you're going to get the most bang for your buck on this primary page. So that's how I dialed it in on drums. Here's without it. Here's with it. And it looks like there's gonna be hell to pay. A little too much first reflection. I really like how it sounds. You might have your own opinions, but I love that vintage style room reverb. Next is the instruments. So here's what I'm working with. Without it, is with it. On this one, I used the YardStick mode and around 560 milliseconds because I just wanted to give it a good, not too big, not too small room sound for these instruments to exist in. There's a few more options on this one. You'll notice you have a mode down here where you can do simple, medium, or complex. And this is how kind of dense, for lack of a better term, the reverb sounds. So simple is going to be your most kind of stripped back basic sound. Medium is going to be in the middle. And then complex is going to be a lot bigger and more reflective and more juicy, or I don't know. I'll let you hear it. Here's medium. Here's complex. Actually, complex sounds really good. I'm going to leave it there. You'll notice now the reverb multiplier, you can change the frequency and get a little more detailed overall. So again, I'm using it kind of as a roll-off, get rid of some super lows and some super highs, just because I don't personally like how those are handled with reverb. I just prefer them out of there. You can mess with the reverb density if you want. But I just left it at 100. Again, reverb delay, same kind of thing, how long before it comes in. First reflection level. But over on the secondary page, you have a lot more to do with the first reflection and all of that. And I would just really tweak these to taste and see what you like. It's not as much of like a, hey, do this specific thing, but it's like, hey, here's the tools, go mess with it and see. The first reflection spread is going to delay one side of the first reflection by a little bit. This is a trick like delaying the left side or the right side that helps to create width where there otherwise wouldn't have been any. So if you want that first reflection to hit your ears at a different speed, you can adjust this. Just adds some subtle width. One thing I really like about this side is you have the bass gain, which will roll off low end at whatever frequency you want. Everything below. And then you have a reverb high cut, which will just roll off all of the highs. So that is how I used it on some instruments. Here's in the whole mix without reverb, and then I'll add the reverb in. Can't seem to get out of my own way. And it looks like there's gonna be hell to pay. Just kind of makes the instruments, those guitars, sound a little more shimmery and lively, and just gives it that kind of classic sound that you'd want from this style song. All right, for vocals, I wanted a bit of a different effect than I did for the instruments and the drums. So I was aiming for more of a hall or plate, longer reverb sound with this. We're in the cone. We're in the cone. We're in the cone. So for this one, I used the YardStick model again, except this time my reverb time is way higher at 1.8 seconds. Most all of my settings here are roughly the same as before because I liked that sound. I just wanted a little bit more on the reverb time. I did make sure to roll off some highs on the vocals as that can get in the way of the vocals. Like you don't want the vocal reverb competing with the vocals, so I definitely recommend doing that. Otherwise, I'll show you what it sounds like with and without it. It's a really easy plugin to use once you get used to these few parameters. And it's one of those plugins that no matter where you put the knobs and the faders and the buttons, it just sounds good. So I need more of that kind of plugin in my life. So here is just the vocals.
We're in the cone.
Here's with reverb.
We're in the cone.
Just gives it a nice little bit of space. Here's the full mix with and without the vocal reverb. Here's without.
We're in the cone. We're in the cone.
Here's with the reverb.
We're in the cone. We're in the cone.
Subtle, but it just gives it a little bit of extra space. Now I'm going to play the full mix, and I'll toggle all three of those instances of QRS on and off so you can hear the difference and the value it can provide to your mix. Here we go.
Here's
without it.
And I don't
With
know
it.
if we'll get a spot. Should we stay or should we go?
Off.
Should we get in line at Costco? I don't know.
QRS is probably one of my favorite reverb plugins in Logic, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you start to explore what that reverb can do for your own music. I would definitely recommend this for any sort of retro or vintage style tracks. Like if you're trying to go for that old school sound, this is really going to help you get there because it's a tool that they used in that time period to get that sound. And also if you're doing any sort of ambient electronic tracks that need just a big lush sound, I think QRS could also be great for that as well. But I'd love to hear what you think. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite use for QRS is, or if you're going to check it out for the first time now, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.